dear students. In today's class, let us discuss what is a cell and what are the types of cells. If you remember, in our previous class, we have studied that what is a cell. Cell can be better defined as the structural and functional unit of life. Because if you remember, what is a living cell and what is a dead cell? If you ask me this question, I told you, the cell with at least minimum metabolism is called a living cell. But where does this metabolic activities take place? Metabolic activities always take place in cytoplasm of the cell. So if there is no cell, there is no question of cytoplasm and there is no question of existence of life. And on the planet Earth, all the organisms are made up of cells only. Some unicellular organisms, their entire body is made up of only one cell. In multicellular animals, bodies are made up of millions and billions of cells. But ultimately, all the living organisms has got cellular organization, and the metabolic activity which ensures the life always takes place in the cell cytoplasm. So now let us exactly know what is a cell. So if you see here, cell. Here you can see cell is the fundamental, structural and functional unit of all living organisms. And who discovered the cell? So you can see here, Robert Hooke discovered the cell in cork cambium. You know, cork cambium means it is the dead plant material. So when he was observing cork cambium under the microscope, he could able to see the structures with some boundary. And the structure with a boundary, Robert Hooke called it as a cell. So after that you can see the name of Anton von Leeuwenhoek first saw and described the living cells like Robert Hooke observed cells of cork cambium, but they were the dead cells. Live cells, live motile cells for the first time observed by Anton von Leeuwenhoek. And after that, every student should remember the most important organelle of a cell, that is nucleus, because inside the nucleus the master molecule DNA is contained, DNA is present, and this DNA controls all the metabolic activities of the cell. And nucleus was discovered by Robert Brown. So related to cell, the most important names which you have to remember: Robert Hooke, who discovered the cell for the first time in the cork cambium. Living and motile cells were observed for the first time by Anton von Leeuwenhoek. And the most important cell organelle, that is nucleus, it was discovered by Robert Brown. Okay. Here, now the topic is what? Types of cells. And basically, the cells are classified into, you can see in the slide, cells are classified into what? Prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell. So it is purely based on structure of the nucleus. So students should remember, karyon, K-A-R-Y-O-N, karyon means what? Nucleus. And here you see, pro means what? Primitive nucleus. Eukaryotic, U means always it is true. In biology, wherever you come across the word, if any word starts with the prefix U, you have to remember it is something true. So if you ask me, sir, what is the difference between a prokaryotic cell and a eukaryotic cell? Prokaryotic cell is one. It is the cell without a distinct nucleus is called prokaryotic cell. And cell with a distinct nucleus is called a eukaryotic cell. So in a prokaryotic cell, people say nucleus is absent. That is the broad version. But whenever we talk about nucleus, nucleus is made up of two main components, that is genetic material, and it is surrounded by the nuclear membrane. But what is the main difference between a prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell? In a prokaryotic cell, nuclear material is not covered by the nuclear membrane. So students should remember, in a prokaryotic cell, literally speaking, what is absent? Nuclear membrane is absent, but the nuclear material is present. In a eukaryotic cell, what happens? Nuclear material, that is DNA, surrounded by a distinct membrane called nuclear membrane. So that's why when you are taking the view of a prokaryotic cell, you cannot see an organelle called nucleus. What is the reason? Because nuclear membrane is absent. In a eukaryotic cell, nuclear material is surrounded by the nuclear membrane. That's why whenever you are taking the view of a eukaryotic cell, you can point out a cell organelle called nucleus. And here all students should remember the best example for prokaryotic cell, that is bacterial cells. All the bacterial cells are the example for prokaryotic cell. All plant and animal cells are the examples for eukaryotic cell. Even fungal cells also eukaryotic, but as we are studying the basics, you can remember. Example for a prokaryotic cell, that is a bacterial cell. Example for eukaryotic cell is a plant and the animal cell. Now let us discuss some of the important aspects of bacterial cell. Okay, so if you see the diagram here, bacterial cell is an example for what I said, prokaryotic cell. Now if you see this structure here you can see DNA. So DNA here it is called nucleoid. So students should understand this. Whenever you are taking the view of a eukaryotic cell, you can see a structure called nucleus. But this is the structure of a bacterial cell, which is a prokaryotic cell. In this, you don't find an organelle called nucleus. Why I said? Because genetic material, that is DNA, is present, but DNA is not covered by the nuclear membrane. So students should understand, DNA is organized to form a single chromosome, but the DNA is not covered by the nuclear membrane. Due to the absence of the nuclear membrane, we say that true nucleus is absent. That's why this cell is called prokaryotic cell. And one more important point when we talk about prokaryotic cell. So prokaryotic cell has a cell membrane, that is the boundary plasma membrane. Plasma membrane is covered by the cell wall. Cell wall is made up of chemicals called peptidoglycans. Okay. So after that, here membrane bound organelles are absent. If someone asks you, what is the main difference between a prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell? Your answer should be, in a prokaryotic cell, membrane bound organelles like mitochondria, chloroplast, Golgi complex, endoplasmic reticulum, these are all absent. The only common cell organelle for both prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell is ribosomes. Students should remember. The only membrane bound organelles which are common for both prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell, that is ribosome. But one more difference will be there. The ribosomes present in prokaryotic cell are said to be 70S ribosomes. In eukaryotic cells, 80S ribosomes are present. And whenever we talk about prokaryotic cell, every student should remember this. That is a mesosome, which is very important, because at your schooling also you have studied about mitochondria, which is popularly known as powerhouse of the cell. And in prokaryotic cell, actually mitochondria is a double membrane bound organelle. I already told you, in prokaryotic cell, all membrane bound organelles are absent. If mitochondria are absent in a prokaryotic cell, who will produce the energy required for the metabolic activities? Our answer should be mesosomes. This plasma membrane invaginates into the cytoplasm and it forms the structure called mesosomes. And mesosomes will perform the function of mitochondria in a prokaryotic cell. Means mesosomes contain enzymes involved in the cellular respiration, because of which energy is going to be produced. Okay, so this is the broadly the structure of a prokaryotic cell. Bacterial cell is the best example for prokaryotic cell. What is absent here? All the membrane bound organelles are absent. That's why nuclear material, that is DNA, is present. The place where DNA got concentrated is called nucleoid. Okay, but distinct nuclear membrane is absent, and all other membrane bound organelles are also absent. Plasma membrane invaginates to form a structure called mesosome. Mesosomes functions like mitochondria. Okay, now let us know the structure of an animal cell. When you look into the structure of animal cell, I already told you, plant cell and animal cell are the examples for eukaryotic cells. Now, animal cell, if you see the structure of animal cell, important things you have to remember. This is the section of an animal cell, and animal cell has a boundary. That boundary is nothing but cell membrane, otherwise we can call it plasma membrane. And you can see there is a distinct cell organelle, that is nucleus. So nucleolus plus nuclear membrane. If someone asks you what is nucleus, our answer should be like this: nucleolus plus nuclear membrane together forms a structure called nucleus. I already told you what is nucleolus, like the place where genetic material got concentrated and it is surrounded by a distinct membrane. You can see in the diagram, that is a nuclear membrane. That is the main difference between prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell. We have seen the structure of bacterial cell where nuclear membrane was absent. That's why I said distinct structure called nucleus is absent in prokaryotic cell, and whenever you are taking the view of a eukaryotic cell, you can see a distinct structure called nucleus. Okay, and along with nucleus you can see many other membrane bound organelles, and importantly you can see here mitochondrion, which is popularly called powerhouse of the cell, and other membrane bound organelles like Golgi bodies are present. Endoplasmic reticulum, we have two types of endoplasmic reticulum, that is rough endoplasmic reticulum and smooth endoplasmic reticulum, and along with that lysosomes are there. Students should remember, lysosomes are popularly called suicidal bags of the cell. And one more important cell organelle, that is you can see here ribosome. If you remember what I said, the only cell organelle which is common for both prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell, that is ribosome. And if you ask me what is the function of ribosome, ribosomes are responsible for the process of protein synthesis. That's why students should remember, ribosomes are popularly known as protein factories of the cell, and ribosomes are very busy in the synthesis of proteins all the time. That's why they are also called work benches of the cell. Okay, and here students should remember, there is somewhere we can see an empty space. These empty spaces you can see here and there, they are called vacuoles, understand, and these vacuoles are very small in size in animal cell, and we don't have the cell organelle called plastid here. Next I'll tell you main difference between plant cell and animal cell. So in the plant cell, vacuoles will be large in size and cell organelle called plastids are present. Here you don't find cell organelle called plastid, and you have empty spaces called vacuoles which are small in size. That's why nucleus usually lies in center of the cell. And one more thing you can observe, outermost layer, boundary of the animal cell is what? Cell membrane. Cell membrane is not covered by the cell wall, understand. So cell wall is present in bacterial cell as well as plant cell, but cell wall is absent in the animal cell. Okay, so that's why cell walls, animal cells are irregular in shape. Here you can see cell which is oval in shape, cells can be spherical, cells can be elliptical, cells can be polygonal, like that. Animal cells appear in many shapes due to the absence of the rigid cell wall. So let me repeat, if someone asks you what are the differences between plant cell and animal cell, in animal cell, cell wall is absent, in plant cell, cell wall is present. In animal cell, vacuoles are very small in size. In plant cells, vacuoles are large in size. In animal cell, the cell organelle called plastids are absent. In plant cell, plastids are present. They work as chloroplast, isn't it? So next let us see the structure of plant cell. Here is the diagram which represents a plant cell, which already I have explained you. Directly you can see the first structure, vacuole. So the vacuole is very large and they are empty or they are filled with some gases and all. And this, that's why what happens, nucleus is usually towards one side. In this diagram it is shown in the middle, but normally in most of the plant cells what happens, due to the presence of large central vacuole, nucleus is at one side, and most of these plant cells are rectangular in shape. Why the plant cells are rectangular in shape? You can see in the diagram. Here we have cell membrane, that is the plasma membrane. Plasma membrane is covered by cell wall. In animal cell, this cell wall is absent, right? So every student should remember, plant cells, most of the plant cells are usually rectangular in size. Why, tell me? Because cell membrane is externally covered by a rigid cell wall which is made up of cellulose, and this cellulosic cell wall is absent in the animal cell. And I was telling you, you can see all other cell organelles are common, like endoplasmic reticulum, rough and smooth endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes are there, Golgi bodies are there, but the important difference you can see here, chloroplast. This chloroplast is a type of plastid, and plastids are absent in what I said, animal cells, and plastids are present only in the plant cell, and the plastids containing the chlorophyll is called chloroplast, which help in the function of photosynthesis. Okay, so this is all about the three types of cells. What we have discussed, tell me. Bacterial cell, it is an example for prokaryotic cell. In a bacterial cell, literally speaking, what is absent? Distinct nucleus is absent. Why do we say so? Nuclear material is not covered by the nuclear membrane. Next type of cell is what? Eukaryotic cell. U means what? True. In both plant and animal cells, nuclear material is covered by a distinct nuclear membrane. And what are the best examples for eukaryotic cell, plant cell and animal cell? Now let us know the difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell. So when we look into the differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell, here you see already we have discussed prokaryotic cell. Nucleus is absent, nucleus is present. But what I want you to remember, here we say nucleus is absent, but literally speaking, nuclear membrane is absent in a prokaryotic cell, whereas in eukaryotic cell, nuclear material is covered by nuclear membrane. Next, one but true chromosomes means total DNA. The total DNA organized to form a single chromosome, but in eukaryotic cell, it has more than one chromosome. So here students should not confuse. DNA is present in both prokaryotic cell as well as eukaryotic cell. The total DNA present in a prokaryotic cell condensed to form a single chromosome, but in eukaryotic cell what happens? The DNA which undergoes condensation, it forms more than one chromosome. If you remember, in every human cell, 23 pairs of chromosomes are present. That is the main difference here. Next, usually unicellular and membrane bounded. Usually multicellular and membrane bounded means plasma membrane is present. Next, cell organelles are absent. Only ribosomes is present. I already told you. In a prokaryotic cell, all the membrane bound organelles like mitochondria, chloroplast, Golgi complex, endoplasmic reticulum, etc. you never find in a prokaryotic cell except what? Ribosomes. But in eukaryotic cell, all the cell organelles are present along with ribosomes. That's why I was telling you, the only cell organelle which is common for both prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell, that is ribosome. But students should remember, in prokaryotic cell, 70S type of ribosomes are present. In a eukaryotic cell, 80S type of ribosomes are present. Next, cell size 1 to 100, 1 to 10 micrometers, and here cell size is 10 to 100 micrometers naturally. I already told you. Example, bacteria and archaebacteria. This archaea is also a type of bacteria. For eukaryotic cell, what are the best examples? Plant cells and animal cells. Now, let us know the differences between plant cell and animal cell. So, you can see here difference between plant cell and animal cell. So, plant cell have fixed and rectangular shape. I already told you. Why plant cells are fixed and rectangular shape? Because in plant cells, cell membrane is externally covered by a rigid wall which is made up of cellulose. But cellulosic cell wall is absent in animal cell. That's why animal cell is irregular in shape. Sometimes it is round in shape, sometimes oval in shape, polygonal in shape, like that. Next, cell wall is present. I already told you, in animal cell, what is absent? Cell wall is absent. Students should remember. In plant, cell wall is made up of with some substance? Cellulose. Okay. Next, nucleus are present and lies on one side of the cell. So nucleus is present, but usually it is not present in center of the cell. What is the reason I said? Because in plant cell, large sized empty spaces called vacuoles are present. In some plant cell, vacuole occupies the center of the cell. It pushes the nucleus towards one end. But here nucleus is present and it lies in the center of the cell. Because vacuoles most of the times absent. If they are present also, very small sized vacuoles are present. Next, plastids are present. I told you, the cell organelle which is present in plant cell and absent in the animal cell. Answer should be plastid. That's why it is written here, plastids are present, plastids are absent. When the plastid is provided with chlorophyll, that is called chloroplast, which helps in photosynthesis. Okay. Now, last one, vacuoles are large and few central vacuoles are present. In an animal cell, vacuoles are usually small, numerous, but they never present in the center of the cell. These empty spaces called vacuoles can be present in the center of the cell only in what? Plant cell. That's why nucleus is pushed at one end. But in animal cell, vacuoles are very small in size. They are never present in the center of the cell. That's why in the center of the cell usually what is present? Nucleus is present. So this is all about today's class. Like today we have discussed what is a cell. What is a cell? Structural and functional unit of life. Who discovered the cell for the first time? Robert Hooke. Who discovered the living cells for the first time? Anton von Leeuwenhoek. Okay. Who discovered the nucleus? Robert Brown discovered the nucleus. Basically, what are the two types of cells? Prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell. Example for prokaryotic cell is bacterial cell. Example for eukaryotic cell is plant cell and animal cell. Then we have studied the structure of bacterial cell as an example for prokaryotic cell. For eukaryotic cell, we have studied the structure of plant cell and animal cell. Okay. So with this, I want to stop this class for today. Thank you.